Hi guys, before I start with my review I have two things to say. So the first one I think everybody knows by now, but I just want to say it once more. Episode 44 will air on June 11th, so on a Tuesday. So they moved the day because of the summer season, and that means that we won't get an episode this Saturday. The second thing is, if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome to my weekly Erkenci reviews, where I summarize the latest Erkenci episode, say what I liked, what I didn't like, predict what I think is going to happen next. If you like these kinds of videos, subscribe to my channel and we will meet on a weekly basis. So now let's get into the review. The first thing that I've noticed is that since last episode, every episode kind of has a name. So last episode was called Confrontation Valley. So right after they show like 42nd, 43rd bölüm, there's like a name. So this episode was called Güven Vadisi or something like that, and translated it means Trust Valley, if I'm not mistaken. So you kind of get the feeling what the main topic is of that episode. So in episode 43, Dennis tried to get a little closer to Muzo, and the funniest thing was when they were trying out the perfumes and Dennis sprayed Muzo and he just lost it. He got so angry with her. I laughed so much. And then also Bulut and Daren got a little closer, so he's kind of helping her become more human, like not like this workaholic saying please, thank you, stuff like that. And he's still obsessed with her shoes. Aziz and Miriban were so adorable this episode. Just seeing their old relationship bloom again. Muzo and JJ, like the dream team. Them two together I loved so much. When they were trying to come up with plans to stop Yeet, just them having a dialogue, it was just hilarious. You have to watch it. And then JJ once again at his peak. I felt kind of sorry when they were having this cream perfume meeting and Gigi was left alone when Daren was saying you have to get in pairs, like one male, one female. So it was Daren and Bulut, Muzo and Dennis, and Can and Sanem, and Gigi was the only one left. And then he was like, I will call Ayhan, and then called her. It was just amazing. And then when he was assuring Can the whole time that he will solve the Yeet problem, find out everything he needs to know, and then spying on Yeet, oh my god, like JJ was hilarious. And then we also had the Layam storyline kind of going on, where Emre was trying to tell Layla that he wants to start a family with her, so he wants to have a child with her. Every time he wanted to say something, he got interrupted. One time it was Mevkebe when she came with the shopping. The second time was when Layla's boss called, and I think that's all. So before that, even when they were having a breakfast, or Nihat and Mevkebe were having breakfast, and Layla and Emre were trying to have a Layam day. Layla was like, well, I feel kind of sick, can you give me a piece of bread? And then Emre said, well, we want to plan our future, blah blah blah. So Mevkebe translated it all to Layla being pregnant and her excitement. It was just amazing, that scene. 10 out of 10. And then Nihat being like, oh no, she can't be pregnant. I mean, she would tell me if she would have been pregnant. And then he gets excited as well. And then Mevkebe comes with baby stuff. And then Melaha comes and wants to congratulate them. But they were kind of talking past each other, because Mevkebe is like, how can you know that Layla is pregnant? But Melahat was referring to what she heard Layla and Emre talk about. So Canem called Layam. Then she was like, the gossip queen, telling everyone, going to congratulate Nihat and Mevkebe, and they got all riled up. What? This can't be happening, blah blah blah. And then they go to Sanem. But anyways, Layam, Nihat and Mevkebe have dinner. Mevkebe is all excited, gives Layla the baby shoes, and then Layla is like, well, how did you know that? We were just talking about it today. And then Mevkebe is like, what? So you're not pregnant? No, we're not pregnant. And then Nihat and Mevkebe get really sad because Layam wanted to tell them that they want to move out. Before the dinner, Layam went to a dance lesson, and that's where Emre asked Layla if she wants to have a child with him, which was really adorable. And she said, well, I always wanted to talk with you about it, but I thought you wouldn't be ready for it. Anyways, next day they're all dressed up and Mama Divit is in the garden with Emre, and then the reaction that Layla and Mevkebe had when they saw Mama Divit, it was amazing. And then they couldn't get rid of Mama David, and then their savior was a taxi and Mama David couldn't get in. It was just hilarious. Like, I laughed so much this episode. Anyways, a second taxi comes and she says, can you follow that taxi? And that's where she sees Aziz, Miriban, Nihat, Mevkube and Layem at the dance studio having dance lessons. And I kind of felt bad for Mama David because she looked really sad when she watched Miriban and Aziz being so happy and cheerful. So I was kind of feeling for her because of course everybody wants to have that feeling, to be happy, to have a partner and stuff like that. But on the other side, I was like, serves you right. You did this all by yourself. So anyways, moving to the main focus of this episode, Janem. So we start off with Sanem being confused. What does Yeet want to confess to her? Jan is like, well, go to the house. Like, he doesn't say anything, but he just signs, well, there you go. You can go inside if you want to talk alone, because Yeet wanted to talk alone. But Sanem is already inside, and then he walks to the house and gets a message from Mama David, and I was like, just like I predicted in my previous review that Mama David will save Yeet in some way. So she tells him that there's no camera at the hut, never has been, just there's no footage. And then he turns to John. John looks at him quite confused, and then Yeet starts smiling, walks in, and I don't know, even thinking about it, it makes me laugh because that whole scene with Janem and Yeet at the beginning, I just laughed. I couldn't help myself, especially when I heard all those words from Yeet. I mean, seriously? Anyways, he confesses to Sanem that throughout this year, they got closer and he started to fall in love with her. Sanem gets all confused. Where does this come from? And then he's like, yes, I fell in love with you and I know what is written in your book, your feelings for John, but I don't care, they will pass one day. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, oh my god. I mean, good for him that he finally confessed something that we knew from the beginning. And I really do hope that Sanem will put 2 and 2 together and see that John really was right all along. But one thing that I want her to see is that creepy picture in his bedroom. Like, please, Aisha, make Sanem see that picture because it would be amazing. That would be the final puzzle piece for her. And then Yeet is like, will you marry me? And I started laughing out loud. Like, I couldn't hold myself back hearing it from Yeet. It was so weird. Like I said, just thinking about it makes me laugh so hard. And then Sanem got even more confused, and then she's questioning him because John kind of urged them to talk. So she's like, does John know about this? And then Yeet is like, don't rush into it, just think about it, blah blah blah. And then Sanem storms out, confronts John, which we already saw in the trailer, where she's like, are you happy now? Oh my god, I can't believe you. So John first was like, well, did he confess? And then she gets all riled up. How can he do something like that? And then he gets all confused, like, what is happening? Like, this is not the reaction I expected from her, kind of. And then he goes inside, gets all angry. Yeet is like, you've never had any footage. And then John is all chill, all relaxed, and being like, my plan might have not worked out, but I know that you burned that notebook. And then he looks at the phone and wants to see who messaged Yeet. But then Ninja Yeet appears with his cane, smacks the phone out of John's hand. And I was like, oh my god, John, please run to the phone, see who messaged Yeet, because this is the last piece you need. Anyways, Yeet is like, come on, punch me, blah blah blah, punch me. And John is like, I won't play your dirty game, kind of. And then he asks what Yeet told Sanem, and then he says, well, I proposed to her. And just hearing that again, I laughed out loud. Just the same as John did, he was also laughing because it was ridiculous hearing it from Yeet. I mean, how blind can you be that Sanem is not interested in you? But that makes sense with his definition of love that he told Darren at Liam's wedding, that even though the person you love doesn't want you near them, you will be near them, kind of like you're forcing yourself onto them. And that's just what he does. So in some way, it's his definition of love. kind of. So anyways, Can said that he knew all along that Yeet was in love with her. And then Yeet, being discreet, he was like, well, I will make her love me. I will do anything for her. I will convince her to be with me. And I'm like, how desperate can you be? And then Can, being all chilled, being like, Sanem never loved you and never will love you. And then he walks out. And then there is this little meeting with Dagan, JJ, Muzo, Dennis and Bulut. And they see Sanem coming. And Sanem is kind of in her bubble once again. One little funny moment was when Sanem almost tripped. It was just amazing. Anyways, she says that she wants to be alone. She has now some grass, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of the cue for JJ and Dennis. And they know, oh my god, something happened to Sanem. So they ask her. She tells them that Yeet proposed to her. And then you really see Team Yeet, Team Janem. So Dennis and Bulut being Team Yeet. And Dennis, Muzo and JJ being Team Janem or Team Can. Then there's this back and forth between Sanem and JJ, which was hilarious. And then JJ is like, well, I will kill him, I will take his cane, blah blah blah, gets all angry. And Bulut is like, how can you be like that? Maybe they will be very happy because Yeet is a very nice guy. Anyways, JJ faints somewhere in the middle. When he wakes up again, he's kind of back in time, being at the agency and being like, well, I checked all the emails, where is Güliz, maybe she's gossiping again, did Canbey come? And Dagan was so confused. Oh well, I almost forgot, I also really like the moments between Muzo and Sanem, because now Sanem doesn't have Ayhan, but Muzo has been there all along with Ayhan, so he's kind of a substitute for Ayhan, and him trying to convince Sanem to motivate her. It was just really adorable seeing their friendship. And then JJ goes to Can, tells him that Sanem didn't refuse or didn't say no to Yeet's proposal, and that's what makes Can really angry and confused. How couldn't she say no to Yeet? I mean, he knew about the proposal, so that wasn't news to him when JJ came with that information. But the one thing that kind of made him really angry or frustrated was that Sanem didn't answer Yeet and didn't give him a clear no, I don't want to marry you. And then we have this nice Janem moment. So Can is reading Sanem's book, and as I said, I don't know how many reviews back, that they will find their answers to their current situation in Sanem's book. And I think that's happening quite a lot now, and I really like that. Anyway, Sanem is at the dock throwing a plastic bottle once again into the sea. Then when she wants to walk back, Can comes and she hides from him. He lays down on the dock. She watches him, falls asleep watching him. Then they also have this little flashbacks. I think Can has the most flashbacks to what happened that day with Yeet and Sanem and this whole situation. So anyways, Can wakes up, wants to go back to the house, sees Sanem sitting there or sleeping there, goes up to her, being all cute. She wakes up, and one thing that I've noticed is that in the trailer that we got, this scene was much lighter, like it was sunshine, but in the episode it was kind of cloudy and darker. So that's just one thing that I've noticed. Anyways, when she wakes up, she's all on cloud 9, being all, oh my god, look at Can being so adorable. But then when it clicks that that's really happening, she gets all flustered and all like, oh my god, I was just waiting for a friend who went out in the sea, maybe he's drowning, blah blah blah. Just talks nonsense. Even Can was really confused, but it was hilarious. Then we have Janem calling Liam, and that's where Melahat hears about the proposal to Sanem. But because she only hears Emre talking to Can about a proposal and Sanem talking to Layla about a proposal, she kind of puts those two together and thinks that Can proposed to Sanem, which was not the case obviously. But what I've noticed this episode, there was a lot of miscommunication going on. Anyways, Emre meets up with Can. They talk about this whole Yeet situation, but Can was actually at the park because he wanted to meet up with the detective Remedy hired to find Can. So now he kind of uses that connection and he tells the detective that he wants to find everything there is about Yeet. Then we have a huge meeting happening where Yeet tells Mama David all about this proposal, and he will do everything until Sanem accepts his proposal. And even Mama David was kind of like, okay, this person is going crazy now, and she kind of tells him that he's not really well and that he should consider her rejecting his proposal, but he's like, no, he will do anything for her. She will accept it because he feels it, that she wants to say yes, but only because Can is near her, she won't accept his proposal. And I'm like, oh my god, like how delusional can you be? And then Mama David says that Yeet has become quite aggressive since Can arrived, and Yeet is like, yes, Can is a very bad influence, I will make everything to make him go away, blah blah blah. Like even Mama David kind of got scared of Yeet. And then he tells her that Can almost saw the message, and that's when Mama David goes into panic mode, where she's like, oh my god, what if he saw? That's my end, like I can't let this happen. And then while Mama David is panicking, Yeet is sitting next to her smiling like a creep, and I was like, oh my god. And then Yeet is like, my end will be your end as well. I was like, oh my god, how creepy was that? And then Mama David calls Can to check up on him if he has any information about it, if he's suspicious of her, but he doesn't know about Mama David yet, so she's kind of okay, for now I'm relaxed. But we also have a second Yeet meeting quite at the end of the episode, where the detective is actually spying on Mama David and Yeet. Mama David is kind of venting to Yeet that Can didn't answer her messages, blah blah blah, and maybe he's suspicious of something. Anyways, the detective takes pictures of it. The next day he calls Can, tells him that there's nothing really wrong with Yeet. The weird thing is that Yeet doesn't really have any friends, and that his only project he's working on is Sanem's book, and he hasn't worked on anything else since, and that he met up with a woman last night, but he has no information about who this woman is yet, so he will keep Can up to date who that woman is and if he does anything more. And I was like, oh my god, if Can hears that it's his mother, wow. But on the other side, I'm like, he's not aggressive anymore, like he's really chill. How will he handle that situation? Like there's still a lot going on. He still needs to find out about Emre, he still needs to find out about Mama David, so this is going to be really interesting. Anyways, going back, we have Sanem being back in the neighborhood, and everywhere she looks she sees Can has flashbacks of him, and that's also what she tells Layla, that everywhere she looks she sees Can in the neighborhood, and even now at her new place Can is everywhere, so that's kind of messing with her head. And then we see Can in the car having flashbacks of them two being in the car, and then he sees Sanem walking to a bus stop, and then he stops, wants to pick her up so both of them can go home. At first Sanem refuses, but then she gets in, and then there's this amazing deja vu happening, which we also see in the episode, and I think it was episode 3 or 4 when the belt was stuck. It was just amazing to see that happen again. Oh my god, I love this so much. Anyways, they have a kind of awkward car ride, and then they start fighting. Can stops the car because Sanem wants to get out, and then their real big fight starts. So Can is like, I didn't burn your notebook. Sanem is like, well, why do you think I brought that notebook to you? Because it was all you in there. And then Can is like, well, you should have told me that I shouldn't leave. And then Sanem is like, well, I called you 10 minutes later, but your phone was off. Am I not allowed to make a mistake for 10 minutes? I wanted to apologize, say that I don't want you to leave, but your phone was off. Is this your kind of love? And then Can is like, you gave up on us a long time ago when you called me aggressive at Liam's wedding, constantly saying that we had problems. And then Sanem gets even angrier and said, well, you gave up on us even long before that, when you didn't want to see me anymore and I stayed, when your ex-girlfriend came back and I stayed, when everyone else told me you would leave, I said you wouldn't, but you did and didn't come back for me, so now you can go. And then she's pushing him, and then he takes her hands and they're really close, and I was like, oh my god, like this is so intense. But one thing that I've noticed is like she gets out of his grip, fishes her phone out, and then it rings. And I was like, does she have like a feeling when a phone rings even before it's ringing? Like, this was kind of weird. Anyways, they get in the car, and that ringing was actually Gigi, Muzo and Dennis trying to get hold of Janem. And then Mevkibe and Nihat come, ask where Sanem is. Muzo explains it to them because of the proposal, blah blah blah. And then Aziz, Miriban and Deren come as well, because before that Deren actually told Miriban and Aziz about this whole proposal thing. And the funny thing was that Deren was so confused about it and all over the place that she said, we're done. And then Aziz was like, is the company bankrupt? And she's like, no, not yet. And then he's like, okay, then I don't care. And then she's like, John. And he's like, oh my god, what happened to John? And she's like, no, not John, what's his name? Yeet. And then and then Aziz was like, well, I don't care about him. And then she says that Yeet proposed to Sanem, and Aziz is like, oh my god, what, wait. And then he turned the music off. It was just hilarious. And then they have to come up with a plan, so they need to find John first. Anyways, they're all there trying to get hold of Janem, but nobody can really call them. Sanem comes and Sanem says she wants to be alone. Mevkibe sends everyone out. Team Janem tries to come up with an idea, but actually Daran comes up with their idea to build up this brand for Sanem's cream, so they need John for this mission kind of. And Daran and JJ go to John to talk to him, and John doesn't want to hear about it, so he says, well, my father can do it or Sanem can do it. But Daran is like, no, we need someone special, blah blah blah, we need you. Anyways, Nihat and Mevkibe talk to Sanem, and then again they're talking past each other. So at first you have Nihat and Mevkibe trying to communicate with their faces, and then Nihat can't cope anymore, and then he gets all angry and is like, how can he propose to you, blah blah blah. Sanem is like, oh my god, where do you know that from? Did you install a camera in here? And then she's like, well, I will talk to Yeet. And then they're like, what, Yeet? Yes, Yeet proposed to me. And then they're all like relaxed, and I was like, so Yeet is a better son-in-law than John? Guys, you really need to know the truth. Then you wouldn't say stuff like that. The same goes to Dennis and Bulut. They need to know the truth about Yeet, because they wouldn't talk about him that positively. Then we have Deren and Bulut convincing Sanem to build up this brand. At first she's like, no, I don't want that. But then the only thing kind of motivating her or saying yes to that proposal idea is that John wouldn't leave and that John would work on it as well. So they have this whole cream perfume meeting, and it was kind of educational for me as well, when she talks about the creams and the scents and how it all works, and also with the perfumes. Then you have JJ sitting between Janem and John smelling the cream, and he has all those flashbacks, and there is this intense moment between Sanem and John, and JJ gets overwhelmed and is like, oh my god, Sanem, we need to switch places. Anyway, Sanem was talking about the creams, the perfumes. John was constantly smelling her. It was just amazing. I loved it so much. And then Yeet appears, wants to talk to Sanem, and Gigi goes to John being like, don't you worry, I will spy on them. And then he spies on Yeet and Sanem talking. Yeet saying that he wants to talk to Sanem, and if they could meet up in an hour at the seaside or by the coast. And she's like, okay. And then they notice JJ, and then they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm looking for water. And then he goes with the glass. It was just hilarious. And he is like, water is in the kitchen. And he's like, no, not that water, I want to have water in a well or something like that. It was just hilarious. Then we have this amazing moment between Gigi and Muzo coming up with the plan to stop Yeet from proposing properly to Sanem, and Gigi doesn't have a voice and then mimes everything to Muzo. It was just hilarious. Anyway, Sanem goes to the coast, meets up with Yeet. I mean, it was kind of romantically decorated, him standing there. I kind of felt for him in a weird way when he showed her the ring and was just smiling at her, like having his hopes up. But then knowing how he is and the way he thinks and the creep he is, I'm like, dude, no. Anyways, Sanem is all confused and being like, Yeet, we need to talk. And then Gigi and Muzo appear and interfere, and then Gigi slaps the ring out of Yeet's hand. They sit down, start talking loudly, start eating. It was just amazing. And then Yeet is like, you know what, I will go, I will pick you up tomorrow, because he organized kind of a meeting with a writer that Sanem looks up to. After Yeet left, JJ and Muzo come and are like, well, I hope you're not upset, but Sanem was so happy that they did that. And I think everyone needs friends like Muzo and JJ having your back, being by your side. It's just so adorable and nice. I just love it so much. Anyways, Sanem goes for a walk through the woods. We see Can training. The shirtless season has begun and I'm loving it. Anyways, Bulut comes from a run, asks Can for water. Then we see Daran and Sanem meeting up, and then they notice Bulut and Can working out. They stare at them. Can notices them, and then Sanem and Daran running away. It was just so hilarious. And then we have this little conversation between Can and Bulut, where Can is like, you don't like me very much, and Bulut is like, no, I don't, because of the stories that I heard about you. And Can is like, well, you're friends with Yeet, aren't you? Yes, I am. And then Bulut says that Yeet didn't do anything bad, but as soon as he sees him doing something wrong, it will change instantly. And that's kind of the mentality that Can has. So they shake hands, so maybe they will start getting to know each other better, to be friends with each other, maybe, I don't know. Then we have the amazing baby scene. So Aziz and Miriban come up with the plan, because Miriban always watches over a child now and then. This time she can give it to Sanem, so it will bring Can closer together. They bring the baby to Sanem. At first Sanem is like, I don't know about it, but then she says yes. They give her a list, and then the baby starts crying after Miriban and Aziz are already out. It was just hilarious. Sanem trying to make the baby not cry anymore, and then she starts it was just so amazing. Anyways, before that, she's like, the mother wants to have an eye on her child. Is it a problem for you? And Sanem is like, no, of course not. And I was like, that's not true, but in a way it is true, because Aziz is watching his child, so Can, so anyways, we have Team Can preparing for this huge watch party with seeds, with snacks, drinks, sitting outside watching Can. And then Miriban calls Can, saying that she's in a very noisy place, and then everyone starts talking loudly, and she says, well, I forgot to tell Sanem about the formula for the baby. If it wakes up, can you go up to her and tell her about it? And then he goes, tells Sanem about it, and then he wouldn't leave, kind of. He says, okay, I'm done, goodbye, I told you everything I needed to say. And then he's just looking somewhere, and then she's like, do you need anything? And he's like, no, okay, bye, I will leave, but doesn't leave. It was just hilarious. And then he leaves, and Team Can is like, no, don't leave, while watching it. It was like a football game, or I don't know. It was just so amazing. Anyways, they're all devastated. Aziz is so disappointed in Can, but then Gigi sees him return, and he's like, he returned, he's back. And Can is like, well, I don't have anything else to do, I can help you. And then they prepared the formula, and Team Can watching them. It was just amazing. Then Sanem prepares some food. Can brings up Yeet, which kind of hits a nerve with Sanem. And then she's like, well, don't you have anything to say about Yeet proposing? And then his answer didn't correspond with what she was expecting, so she puts oil, I think, and then a lot of chili in that sauce, and then he wants to eat it, and then he says, well, everything you touch or prepare, it becomes even more special, and that warms her up again. And then she's like, don't eat it, but he already ate it. Even if it's that bad, he still eats it, which he did with the cheek kofta as well, when he revealed himself as Albatros. Anyways, the baby starts crying. She gives the baby the bottle. Can sits behind behind her and then kisses her shoulder, and it was just so adorable. And then you see Team Janem crying, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not far off. Then we see the baby not being able to sleep, Sanem being overwhelmed, being like, oh my god, why aren't you sleeping? And then Jan is constantly like, give it to me, maybe it will work then. And if you look closely, you see when the baby was really sleeping. So when Sanem gave the baby to Jan, it was sleeping, but then when you see Jan from the back, it was awake. So in the story it goes that the baby fell asleep within seconds in Jan's arms, and Sanem was all like, how could you do that, blah blah blah. So I'm like, nobody can resist Jan's magic arms. Then the next day we have Jan waking up next to Sanem with the baby in his arms, and it was just so adorable. And the music is new, like it's the same music that we had when Jan was dreaming about Sanem and their kids. So I think that music will represent their future kind of, but then the really nice Janem moments will have the old Disney music kind of. So anyways, Miriban and Aziz pick up the baby, and then we see Yeet wanting to pick up Sanem to go to that meeting with that writer, and Yeet overhears a conversation where Jan is like, well, I will go now, I will leave, and Aziz is like, are you sure? I will support anything you do, are you sure about it? Jan is like, yes. Yeet interprets it that Jan wants to leave for good, and he's all happy about it. Then we have this little moment where Sanem is in her workshop, JJ and Jan come with the creams, and JJ presents Sanem all the ideas they came up with for the campaign or for the creams, and Sanem looks through the pages. The only one who didn't write anything was Jan, so maybe that he doesn't want to disclose what he feels and thinks about when he smells that scent. Anyways, Dennis tells Sanem that Yeet came, so Yeet picks up Sanem. They're in the car, and it was just so awkward, and even Sanem is like, well, I want to get this over with quickly, I want to go back as soon as possible. And then Yeet starts bringing up the proposal and that it didn't go as he planned, and Sanem is really annoyed by it and says, well, it seems like you don't listen. And she's friend zoning him so hard, and I imagined her kind of pushing him in this friend zone and him trying to hold himself out of the friend zone. And then Sanem is like, I appreciate you as a friend and nothing more, you're my colleague. Yeet is like, well, I do as well, but over the year. And Sanem is like, no, nothing changed. And then she says, I think we should put a distance between us for a while. And then Yeet gets all angry, then blames Jan that he's the reason why she wants to do that, and he thought that Sanem forgot about him, and Sanem got really angry and was like, I could never forget Jan. I wanted to forget the pain he caused me, but my love for Jan will never fade. I will love him for the rest of my life. And then Yeet says, what a shame, he doesn't love you, he doesn't care about you, look, he's leaving. And Sanem is like, no, you're lying. And he's like, no, I heard him talking to his father, maybe he already left. And then she gets out of the car and says, just cancel the meeting, say I'm sorry but I want to be alone. And then she calls everyone asking where Jan is, and then she calls Layla, and because she's next to Aziz, Aziz says that he's on his boat and that's where Sanem is going. And Aziz says, well, he wants to sell his boat, and Layla is like, oh my god, wait, I have to tell her that. But Aziz and Miriban are like, no, just let them solve their problems, like let them be. So we see Sanem seeing Jan on his boat, running up to him, getting on the boat, being like, you're not going anywhere, Jan David. And he doesn't answer, he's just looking at her. And then you have this kind of pleased look in his eyes, and then he starts the boat. Sanem is all confused, where are you going? And then he says, well, you're coming with me. I was like, oh my god. And that's the end. And now to Alex's predictions for episode 44. So because we don't get an episode this Saturday, we didn't really get a preview. There was a really short clip of Jan giving Sanem a hair clip he has, like with the albatross on, and them hugging. So I can't really grab onto anything, but my theory is that they will be MIA for a whole day. So maybe he won't sell the boat right then and there, so he will spend the day on the boat with Sanem. Maybe they talk things through, maybe they get closer together, then he sells the boat, then they're back, or maybe he doesn't even sell the boat because it's their kind of safe spot, them being alone, kind of, you know. I hope we will keep Mama David and Yeet for a longer period of time, because I want Salim to see that creepy picture he has in his bedroom of her. She needs to see it with her own eyes, you know. Oh, what I forgot to mention at the beginning of my review, Mevkibe is kind of warming up on Can, like she still has this soft spot for him, as does Nihat, but they don't want to show it to each other. And yeah, I just don't want to say goodbye to Yeet and Mama David yet, because I still want to have this tension. Because if Yeet leaves the series, who's the bad guy? Like, So that's all I can come up with. If you're still watching, thank you very much. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below what your thoughts are on episode 43. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already to see weekly Erkenci Kush reviews. Click that bell to be notified whenever I post something, and I will see you next time. Bye!